Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, ISIS, Imitation of Life. The Goddess Next Door helps a young black girl overcome racism during the era of Jim Crow in this Golden Age ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, Imitation of Life in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.
Last week, as I was moving into my new apartment with my family, I took a minute to take a look at the internet, and I was shocked to see that Netflix had canceled Daredevil, the flagship show for the Netflix universe and one of the highest rated shows on the Netflix network. And this decision to cancel Daredevil is a very puzzling one as I see it, because Daredevil was supposedly the highest rated show on Netflix based on their information, and it was coming off an incredibly successful season 3. Most people who watched season 3 loved it, and they loved it because it stayed true to the spirit of the Daredevil comics, and in many ways was literally like watching old Frank Miller Daredevil comics come to life on screen. So, with all this success of Daredevil Season 3, many people thought it was a lock that we were going to get a Daredevil Season 4, where Daredevil was going to either feud with Bullseye or, based on Iron Fist, be feuding with Typhoid Mary. So, those were the storylines that were looking like they were setting up for Daredevil Season 4, and that was one of the things that was most surprising about this cancellation. You would think, again, it would be a guaranteed lock that this series would have gotten a renewal based on the ratings that this series got for Season 3. The fans who are so anticipating Season 3 based on how great Season 3 was. But just like the Luke Cage fans who enjoyed Season 2 were shocked at the announcement of that show's cancellation, it seems like this decision to cancel these popular Netflix series is not about the money that Netflix is making. It's about the narrative that Disney is trying to push as related to these characters. Because when I looked at the cancellation of Luke Cage after another successful second season, where it literally took Luke Cage to another level and literally took Marvel's production to another level, because Luke Cage and Daredevil had better production and better storytelling than even Marvel Cinematic Universe films like Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Thor Ragnarok. And they literally are on a level story-wise with Warner Brothers' Dark Knight, which is considered the gold standard as related to superhero films. So Daredevil Season 3 and Luke Cage Season 2 were just, as I see it, right up there with The Dark Knight in terms of production, in terms of storytelling, in terms of acting, and in terms of artistry. They literally took comic book characters to another level creatively, and that's another thing that's so puzzling about this decision to cancel these incredibly successful Netflix series, because as I was talking to a friend on Facebook about this, the Netflix had a better story model and a better formula for superhero storytelling than the people who are running the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. And those writers and those producers like Chio Hodari Coker literally have created a better and far superior model for cinematic adaptation of superheroes. Yet you have the Disney Corporation deciding to take those producers, cancel their projects, and not pursue a far superior story model. But that's all because of narrative. And that's one of the things that I believe is the core reason why Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and possibly Jessica Jones and the Punisher are leaving Netflix, is because Disney wants to change the narrative as related to these characters. And that can be seen in a statement where they said that Daredevil would be back. And I believe that they want to make their adaptation of Daredevil. They want to make a character reflective of Disney's ideas, ideals, and values, and they want to make characters that fit the Disney idea for superheroes. They want to make something more that tells a story that Disney wants to tell, instead of trying to make stories that remain true to the character and true to the source material. Because when I look at a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe projects, I see a completely different model, and I see a lot of things creeping into that model, like the identity politics that I saw in Spider-Man Homecoming, or the gynocentrism that was starting to creep into many of these Netflix shows. Like towards the end of Daredevil season 3, we started to see the gynocentrism creep in, and on Iron Fist, we literally saw the gynocentrism overtake that entire show, the identity politics overtake that entire show, and we saw Danny Rand completely emasculated over the course of 10 jumbled and dysfunctional episodes. And I believe if Daredevil were to come back on a Disney streaming service or a Disney platform, that's the type of story we're going to get from a Marvel and Disney centered adaptation. We're not going to get a character that is true to the dark and gritty source material, or a adaptation that literally takes source material like Luke Cage did and Chio Coker did and elevate it. What we're going to get is pasteurized, homogenized, and mostly incredibly gynocentric heroes who take on pasteurized, homogenized, and very gynocentric villains. So we're going to get these heroes who are all about elevating women and pushing a girl power narrative or a feminist narrative. And that's not something I would want to see related to characters like a Daredevil or a Luke Cage or the Punisher, because that's not who those characters are. And I believe that's what Disney wants to do with these characters, is they want to take them off the Netflix platform, because with Netflix in charge, they were the ones in control of these characters. They were the ones in control of the stories. And what they want to do is take that away from Netflix and then create their own versions of Daredevil, their own versions of Luke Cage, their own versions of Jessica Jones, and then they want to be able to put those characters on their streaming service in their own type of stories. And I believe that the stories we're going to get from Disney are, again, going to be filled with all of this identity politics like they are in their comics right now. They're going to be filled with all of this feminism like we saw in Iron Fist. And we're not going to see heroes being heroes and doing what is right in the community. We're just going to get an agenda pushed at us, because when it comes down to Disney these days, they are more about pushing agendas than profits. And this can be seen with the former executive Channing Dungey, who was running ABC, because when Channing Dungey was running ABC, she decided to cancel an incredibly popular show, Last Man Standing, with Tim Allen, because Tim Allen was a conservative, and because Tim Allen's politics leaned towards being Republican, she decided to cancel his show, and the show was winning its night. But what happened at the end of everything was your Tim Allen then took his show over to Fox once the contract was over, and now Last Man Standing is the highest rated show on Fox, winning Friday nights, the same night that it was on ABC. And that's why one of the big problems with Disney right now is that they're more about agendas than profits. Because when you look at Luke Cage, which literally crashed Netflix's server, Daredevil, which was one of the highest rated shows, you would think Disney would want to keep those shows on the air as is, and then try to then adapt that model for storytelling, or try to hire those people like Chio Coker and the producers of Daredevil to work for them to improve the superhero story model so that the model could go on for another 10 years. But instead of trying to maintain their business and the success of their business. What we have from Disney is a desperate need to try to make the superheroes on their streaming services just as bad as the superheroes in their comics, the comics that aren't selling right now, and probably will lead to low ratings on their streaming service. And it's just sad to see a great series like Daredevil and just as it's starting to actualize its potential, because with season 3 we started to see this Daredevil series really start to reach its peak. I mean, this season 3 was the best adaptation of Daredevil so far. It literally was like a comic book come to life. And it's said that we aren't going to get a season 4 where we can get to see Daredevil versus Bullseye in their costumes, because that was one of the things that really irked me about season 3, is that we got Bullseye, we got the Kingpin, but we didn't get to see Daredevil back in his costume. And that was one of the things that was hinted at, that Daredevil was getting ready to take his costume back and Bullseye would be in costume and we would get to see them. And possibly we could get a nice little Typhoid Mary start to set up, because with Iron Fist we had the establishment of Typhoid Mary in that series, and it would have been nice to see a nice little build-up of things as related to those characters. Unfortunately, Disney is so caught up in trying to change the way people think about superheroes that they don't understand that by going out here and canceling popular series, all they're doing is alienating fan bases that were actually interested in the shows as is. And instead of them trying to develop that fan base, what they want to do is try to push their politics, and what they don't see is they're pushing away people, because canceling a popular show is just not something a smart television executive like a Brandon Tartikoff would have done back in the 80s. No, he would have pushed that show and pushed it hard, because he knows that that's how you get the ad dollars, that's how you make the money, and that's how you get the subs. But Disney is more about agenda and more about politics than they are about fostering goodwill and building a customer base. So when I look at the cancellation of Daredevil, it was just shocking to me, but it just shows me that Disney is more about narrative than they are about profits, and they believe they can profit by trying to manipulate the way people think. But when you try to manipulate the way people think, what you do is wind up turning people away from your products, just like Disney has turned people away from Star Wars, people away from Marvel Comics, and has people looking for the next big product, a product that won't be with a Disney label, but will have an indie label. It's a shame that Disney can't see the value of Netflix and what they did to the Daredevil character, because they literally reinvented that character, brought them to life on screen, and they created a successful model for telling stories featuring comic characters, a model that Netflix really needs to see a good value in, because if they can go to other characters with that model, they could turn into a tremendous success as related to superhero programming and fantasy programming, and they could easily start to take some market share from Disney as related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I believe Warner Brothers is also going to come in and start taking market share. And I believe later on, Disney is going to regret canceling Daredevil once they start to see themselves losing market share, because when I look at Aquaman and I look at Shazam, this is not a good decision for them, and it shows how they're not really thinking competitively. It's more about agenda for them instead of business, because a smart business person wouldn't cancel a successful series. They would try to continue pushing that series, but because Disney is all about narrative, They just don't see the big picture as related to business. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.